my friends, welcome back to part 2 of this wonderful tutorial. I think it's looking quite well, don't you? Very nice kind of distant blue colours there, lots of rich colour in this. So we're on to part 2 and I'm going to finish the lovely warm greens up here. A little bit of a lighthouse on top as well, we'll zoom in for that. So yes, I hope you enjoyed part 1. It turned out quite nice, I'm very happy with this so far. But I still have to do some highlights and a little bit of palette knife work as well, just to get some texture on those cliffs, because it looks quite flat at the moment. So, a little bit of shadow with the palette knife, a little bit of highlight with the palette knife. Let's have a bit of fun with this. I hope it turns out quite nice. I really do. Anyway, my apologies, in part 1 the microphone lost power. It's very difficult with the electronics these days, I think, with everything is Bluetooth and wireless, and as you're painting and recording, you just don't know if a microphone has lost power. There's no warning, there's no lights, nothing. It's not until you look back at the video, you realise the sound is gone. So I made sure my microphone is completely charged up on the camera and on this. It's a bit of a nuisance sometimes, isn't it? I do have the capability of plugging a wired microphone directly into that camera. I did a couple of times and it's very funny what happened. I'll explain to you why I don't and why I can't. For some reason, the wired microphone was picking up radio signals. Very strange. I never came across this before. So I was looking back at the tutorials and I could hear very, very faintly, way off in the distance, I could hear a radio station playing songs on my tutorial. And I discovered afterwards it was the wire, the copper in the wire microphone was picking up a radio station, a local radio station here. So I can't use the wired microphone. If any of you have any hints or tips or could just help me understand how to get around that problem, I would love to hear from you, because it's very frustrating. I would prefer to use a wired microphone directly into the camera itself. It's completely fail safe, you know, it's not going to go dead or anything like that. It doesn't have to be charged. So that was why I had to kind of opt for the Bluetooth microphone. Now when they're charged up fully, they're fantastic, but sometimes you just forget to charge these things, you know. So that's just the way it is, unfortunately, so I apologize for that. So let's carry on and paint. I've this one fully charged up now, so there should be at least 5 or 6 hours worth of battery power in this microphone. It should be okay. Let's have a bit of fun with this, and remember, don't forget to like the video, okay? Like and subscribe, but give a thumbs up, because the more thumbs up you give a video, the more the YouTube algorithm will push that video to other people, and it just helps a lot more people find my channel and learn from my channel. So just keep giving it a thumbs up, and let's move the channel forward and give it to more and more people. There are so many people missing out on basic simple oil painting tutorials. I think it's just not getting out there enough. So please do give it a thumbs up if you don't mind. Anyway, let's crack on and have a bit of fun with this. I'll set the camera up and we'll start painting. So let's go. Let's have a bit of fun with this. I have a palette knife here. I'm going to use a nice flat palette knife, and you see these little highlights, they have kind of faded slightly, haven't they? And you'll notice one thing about this painting, and this is very important. You see all these lines? You see all those lines on the sky? It's only after the paint kind of soaks in you notice all of this. Now, a lot of you probably see this on some of our canvases. What happened was, when I put on the primer, there must have been something hard. Let me show you. There must have been a little bit of paint or something stuck on the tip of the brush somewhere. You can see there, look. There must have been something on the brush, and as I was priming the canvas, it kind of scratched the primer at the same time. It put a mark on the primer. So the primer probably missed bits of the canvas. So you can see it's kind of drying in some of the parts where the primer is not on the canvas. That's absolutely fine. That just means it's drying out in certain areas quicker than others. But when the rest of the sky dries and soaks into the canvas and dries out, that will disappear. And when that's gone, then I'll put a coat of oil painting varnish over the entire painting, and that will be completely gone. So if you notice that on your canvases, that just means the primer has missed in certain places. That's all, because I was kind of rushing at the time when I was priming the canvas for the tutorial. The rest is fine. It's just the sky where the layers are quite thin. So you can see it just here and there, but that will completely disappear when the rest of the sky dries all the way in. Okay, so we'll take no notice of that. That's fine. Anyway, on to these cliffs. I want to put a bit of light on these with a palette knife just to get a bit more of a solid colour. Let's get some phthalo blue and a little bit of magenta, a little bit of white. I'm going to go for a light pinky mauvey sort of a colour just for these highlights, okay? And I'm not going too bright because, again, they're off in the distance, so they don't want to be too bright. Now, that I would say is probably much better. I'm going to use the palette knife just to kind of scratch a couple of highlights. And again, when I'm doing this, I'm not pushing the paint onto the canvas. I'm allowing the grain of the canvas to kind of drag the paint off of the palette knife. That's probably the best technique to use for this. So just kind of picking out some shapes with the palette knife. A little bit more white, perhaps a little bit more blue. Let's get a bit more blue there. A little bit more white. It's just really, I suppose, just having a bit of fun with your palette knife and just seeing what you can kind of create. Because the palette knife is so versatile, you can do so much with the palette knife. A couple of little bit of more sharper lines here and there. And already you can see a bit more texture there, can't you? I'm going to move over to this side. Get some nice rich bright highlights on that side. Naples yellow, bit of white. Let's try a touch of magenta in there as well. Give it a quick mix. And let's try. Let's just kind of pull this down using sort of the back end of the knife here and there just to kind of feather it down. You see what I mean? Already, that gives a much better texture, doesn't it? Let's get some more magenta. I'll make this a little bit warmer, just a bit. And I go over here and give a little hint of that colour on some of these as well. I'll do the same with some of these. And you'll notice, look, I'm only using small bits of paint. I'm not putting huge amount of thick paint on these. There's no need really. Just a little bit, because if you put on too much on this, it's going to be very, very difficult to go over this and darken it if you need to. You're going to make it very, very difficult. So I'm just putting the bare amount on this. And again, a little bit darker towards the bottom. Very loosely with the palette knife. Already, it looks a bit better, doesn't it? Now, I am going to grab Naples yellow and a little touch of cadmium yellow as well. I just really want to add maybe a tiny touch of Sienna. I want to add a kind of a rich, bright sort of sunlight hitting some of these here and there. Okay, just look, just catching the tops of them here and there. And I think that looks a little better, doesn't it? Now the next thing I'm going to do is take a small detailed brush, and I just want to start putting in some very dark, let's call them just little lines here and there, okay? Just small little lines, little bits of finishing detail. So over here, for example, I'm going to just kind of go in along the bottoms of these and just bring them out a bit more. And I'm kind of almost just wiggling the brush here and there just to create these little dark areas, these dark spots. Does that make sense? So now you can start to really see the darkness of some of the cliffs, especially down around here. Look, we're going to go nice and dark down around here, in along the bottoms of these jagged rocks that are coming out here. And I'm literally just kind of wiggling the brush. I'm not suggesting, you know, tiny bits of detail or anything like that. It's just a very, very loose suggestion. Let's put a nice dark one down here like this, look. Just to give that a bit of an edge. Then we have kind of lots of these little cracks coming down. Again, just being very loose with your brush. Very, very loose. It's difficult sometimes to try and keep something simple in your mind, to try and simplify something. That can be a problem for a lot of beginners especially, because I think with a lot of painting and a lot of artists in general, especially when they're learning, they're trying to get this photographic like painting all the time. That's not for me, you know. I think just keeping something simple like this as an impression is a much nicer type of a painting, I think anyway. It just gives you a proper sense of painting a scene. I'm going to put one or two down here, look, as well. Let's just mix it up a little bit, because there will be some darks down on this side as well. We can come over here and darken that side up. So I'm just putting hints of cracks and stuff like that in the rock. And it's not to add more detail, it's just to make it more believable, that's all. One or two down here where it gets down into by the water, it gets nice and dark. Okay. That's not bad. And I might still lighten these just a little bit here and there with a bit of grey. I'm going to take a little bit of black, a bit of white and a touch of burnt umber. And I think it just needs that kind of grey shade. I'm just going to drag it down here and there, look. Just giving a bit more of a natural grey colouring. But it's all about just having a bit of fun really at the same time. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that and move on to my greens. And we can come back to all this now later on, don't worry. So, let's take a big brush. I'm going to start off with that cool green. You see that cool green? Let's try some phthalo blue, and let's try some cadmium yellow. Then a little bit of black, that will darken it down. Now I need to go into some Naples yellow just to thicken the colour up, because at the moment it's very sort of wet, the colour. It's very wet. So the Naples yellow will thicken that up really nicely. And then we go back into our colours again to make it nice and dark. Let's take a bit of burnt umber in with the phthalo blue. That gives you a nice deep cool green as well. Now let's have a look at that. It's not bad. Let's take a touch of Sienna, ever so gently, just to try and warm it up. So the sun is not hitting this area. It's going to be a very cool kind of a green, okay? And that's a nice cool kind of a green. Phthalo blue, yellow, a bit of black, maybe a bit of burnt umber. You can mix and match them all, but that gives you a nice cool green. So it comes up, and as it starts turning, it starts getting warm, doesn't it? So I leave that. I'm going to put some of that colour down here as well. Now I dabbed into a touch of cadmium yellow on its own, just to dab it in, because it will mix with what's on the brush anyway. So you'll have kind of lights and darks. And I'm just going to sort of feather this around, it disappears down onto the cliff, you see what I mean? Like that. I'll clean my brush, then I'll start going into some brighter yellows. I'm simply going to just pick up some cadmium yellow and a touch of sienna. The tip of my brush, nice and thick. And now we have a dark area here, so let's go here, look. Let's put that nice, and it's quite thick, all right? It's a nice thick colour. My main priority right now is just getting the paint on the canvas. We worry then about, you know, putting lights through it afterwards and lighter shades. Let's get some cadmium yellow and some burnt sienna. Nice, vibrant kind of a green up here. So just kind of merge those together, gently dabbing with the tip of your brush. Dab it around, and I might even go into a fan brush as well after this. Maybe not, I don't know. It's a matter of taste, what type of texture you want to get. Okay, that's what it's about. What kind of texture you're after. This is a kind of a dark spot in here, isn't it? So I'm going to put that a dark green in there. So again, I'll get my other brush, my slightly smaller brush. I'm going to go cadmium yellow, a little bit of black, and I'm going to put that nice dark green in there like this. And then, you see, it goes off up out of the painting, doesn't it? Feather it down onto the cliff below. And there we go. That's that section done. I'm going to kind of darken some of that down here as well and just allow it to come down onto the cliff a little bit. A lot of the technique in painting is simply dabbing, really. Dabbing is sometimes the best way of getting something on a canvas. I'm going to come down and put that piece on just there. Again, cadmium yellow. We mix everything in the same spot now, okay? A little bit of burnt sienna. And I will go on a palette knife as well with this in a moment, just to really get this nice and thick on the canvas, okay? But I'm just using the brush first just to cover in the white of the canvas, really, just to get me started, just to get a base colour on the canvas, let's call it that. Excuse me. Now, I'm thinking, perhaps, should we try a fan brush? Just to kind of continue on with the texture in the painting, let's grab some cadmium yellow with a fan brush. I think cadmium yellow on its own, and I might just go along here first with that, look. Dab that on there, and you can see everything starts just to lighten ever so slowly, doesn't it? Cadmium yellow, a bit of sienna. We'll go up here and we'll give that a touch of that warm colour. Just dab it along. So we just slowly start adding our lights into all of this. I have a bit of white on my brush here. I'm going to just start at the side and work it in, and then leave it sort of just fade away down into that dark, you see? So you're catching that light up there, you know? Now plenty of yellow on this. I'm going to do the same. We have, okay, let me see. So we have this one, that one is up there. So we're going to come across like this. And we'll go up like that, creating a little bit of a field up there, just a separate little field. There's a wall up there, isn't there? Going along. And let me get some cadmium yellow on my palette. It's coming on nicely. It takes time. Have a bit of patience, that's all. Just have a little bit of patience, take your time with all of this. Touch of blue, perhaps. Yeah, just remember, just don't rush this at all. Take your time with all of this. Come down here and just dab that on like that. Now don't forget we have our palette knife as well. We can create lots and lots of rich colour with the palette knife as well. So we're not just going to kind of dab all of this with the fan brush, we're going to chance the palette knife as well. Okay, I'm going to come down here and put a light bluey green. Phaylo blue, cadmium yellow, and a nice bit of white. And I want to really catch the brightness of that green down here. Just here and there. Already, I think that's looking quite nice, isn't it? And we can come up here and add a little bit of that light here and there. And I might cool that down then as it turns on this side over here. I'm just going to cool that down. I might go into a bit of black, add a little bit of a darker shade just in here where it turns quite dark down there, and turn it down onto the cliff. Again, all using the fan brush. And I see a little bit of darkness as well coming across here. It's really only just to kind of create different grades of shades of colour and stuff like that throughout the painting. That's all it is. You see what I mean? Just a little bit of shading here and there makes all the difference, doesn't it? I'm going to go to my palette knife and I'm going to go nice and bright. Cadmium yellow, white, and a little bit of that bluey shade. So I've kind of a nice bright yellow. I'm going to come along here and just pick out the edge of that. Make that a little bit sharper. And then simply drag your palette knife throughout. Let's try that again. Let's go up here and we'll just get this, let's get this edge up here nice and bright, look. And that helps. That makes a nice difference. Again, over here, we have those sharp edges. So I want to just get those sharp edges in. And it comes up like that. And it's coming together quite nicely now, isn't it? Okay, I want to come along here and maybe put a dark green and just kind of soften dark green down, very blacky green, here and there. Just kind of bit of scraping going on, bit of this, bit of that, you know, a bit of everything. And maybe a little bit down around here as well. Just kind of swishing my palette knife around, creating a little bit of light areas, a little bit of dark areas. Like so. Next I'm going to put in the wall. Now, I just want to cover some of these here. I want to soften. Just cover these bits of white here, look. I want to soften some of that greeny shade down into the cliff to help it all merge together. Okay? That's all. And there's one small thing I want to do with some burnt sienna and cadmium yellow. I want to just create a very rich, warm colour up around here. Just here and there, scraping it across the field. Catch a bit of light up there. And I think lastly, I need some very bright colour just here and there. Cadmium yellow and just white on its own. Just really, I want to catch a lot of sunlit colour coming across the greens here. You see what I mean? Just coming into the painting ever so slightly. Very whitey yellows. And a little bit more here I think, just like that. And the tiniest little bit as well up here, coming down. You could probably even just use yellow on its own as well for a lot of this. Bit of cadmium yellow. Look, let's just go to town with this. Going to mix one more little bit. We seem to have a nice bright highlight coming across like that, and we have a very nice rich bright highlight up here and coming across there like that. See, very gently just tapping them with the edge of your knife. Okay, and we have a very rich line going up here as well, don't we? I'm just going to soften that down in with my knife. Maybe a little bit along here as well. And a little bit up here. And lastly, I'm going to take some burnt umber and a bit of black. And I'm going to just follow this line up like that, look. Just to bring out those lines just a little bit. Right, I'm done. I'm going to move on to the lighthouse area. I'll do all this last, but I'd like to show you the lighthouse. I'm going to zoom in, if you don't mind, on the lighthouse. Let me just fix this camera and I'll make sure you can see properly. We have a bit of a wall going across, don't we? Let's mix a bit of light blue for that. Some white, some phthalo blue. It's in shade, so it's just going to be a kind of a soft bluey colour. I'm going to imagine it's coming down like this first, right? Like that. Just so I have a reference point to go from. And then it kind of turns. And then it goes off, around and disappears across. Like that, doesn't it? Okay. And as it goes off, away off into the distance, it just gets kind of, it's white, but there's a kind of a yellowy, orangey tinge to it as well, isn't there? So I'm going to drag some white through that yellow. Like so. I'll worry about my darks and all that kind of stuff later on. There's no rush with all this kind of stuff. Let's start painting the lighthouse. I'm going to take some white, just white on its own, nice thick white with my brush, pointy brush, okay? And I'm going to go up and start painting the house part of this. So we have a nice big thick wall coming across here, don't we? Okay, just using thick paint on its own. We have the end of a house, a gable where the roof is here. And this is all just a very light impression. I'm not worried about loads of detail with all of this, okay? So we have that coming across like that. Then we have another very bright white building above that. I'm just going to give a very light suggestion for that. You see, when I use my small detail brush for the dark colours on this, then I'll use that dark colour to pick out all the little lines that separate all of these. Let's put a lighthouse in here, shall we? I'm going to come out a fair bit with this lighthouse. Okay, like that. Then we have a little bit up here on top, and it goes to a bit of a point, doesn't it? And this is quite messy now because it's just so small. It's tiny, it really is tiny. I need to get a very, very small pointy brush. The pointiest brush I can find. This, I think, is probably the one. The smallest little detail brush. I'm going to pick up some cadmium red with this, and I see just a red, like a railing area. Okay. Then I'm going to go with a deep blue for a shadow. Magenta, a little bit of phthalo blue. We get a nice deep blue shadow on the other side of that. It's the shadows really that's going to kind of bring this to life. They're the important parts of any building, and just soften it across. That's what gives it its life, a shadow. Then we have a wall going across underneath that. Just remember, I'm thinking impression. That's all I'm thinking. I'm just thinking impression. It's so far away, we're not going to see that much detail, to be honest. So there's no point in trying to make this look like a photograph. There's not really. Let's just go for a nice little impression. Then we have a little bit of shadow on this house up here. We have another little bit of a shadow coming off that. And I will make these a little bit more on the blue side as well. Let me just get some more white and a bit of blue. You just want to keep your colours nice and fresh, that's all. Okay, this is a bit better. Now I hope that's zooming in all right on your end. I'm going to do the roofs, and this is where it all sort of come together, okay? The roofs, maybe burnt umber and burnt sienna, perhaps. This should be over a bit further, shouldn't it? I want to cut through that for this roof. It should be a bit further over, shouldn't it? So that's what I'll do. And I come up here and I put on this roof then. Like so. Then we will have a little bit of a line cutting across over those. I really must buy some pointy brushes. Okay. Let's suggest a couple of small little windows here and there. One or two there, one there. I'm going to mix up again a little bit of a shadow colour. A nice deep purpley, kind of a pinky shadow colour. I'm going to put that here. And it's still a bit dark, isn't it, that wall? I think it needs to be a little bit brighter. I think that's better. A little bit brighter, isn't it? Painting with oils can be tricky, especially for little details. It can be very tricky to get paint to stick. That's what I would say is the only downside with oils. If this was acrylics, this would all be probably completely dry already. But that's like, you know, that's the sacrifice that you make to have the ability to blend. That's, you know, that's what you give up, having the ability to blend colours. And a little bit up there. It's all very, very loose now, all of this. I'm making it very loose. I'm going to cut under all of this with a bit of light green, just to sit them down a little bit. We have a few chimney tops missing, don't we? I'm going to pop those in. We have one at the end, one in the middle, and then we have a little bit of a dark. Let's get some black now, get some nice darkness on these, okay? There and there. And let's go along the top of this one here. It's all about just suggesting little details after this, really. Okay, we are getting there slowly, my friends. We're getting there slowly, but we are getting there. Let's zoom out, take a look. Now, I could make that a little bit bigger another time. First, I want to put in this grass down here, because that is the only piece that we have left which is not painted. So I'm just going to come across simply just like this, look. Fill that in. Then we get our fan brush. And let's just start putting some texture on all of this. Let's get some phthalo blue, some black, a little bit of yellow, and let's just start putting some blades of grass here and there. Look, little blades. Just pop them in. Try not to be too careful with all of this. It's all just a bit of fun at the end of the day, isn't it? Look, come on, let's have a bit of fun. Let's be nice and loose with all of this. We'll put a bit of cold colour in here. And then I'll clean my brush and I'll go right into some bright yellows. Some yellow, a little bit of white, a little sienna. We'll pop some of that in here. Go right up here, come out into the water with these. I'll take a bit of cadmium red and sienna. Again, just, you know, varying the shades, adding a bit of colour in here and there. That's all it is. Okay? Now the customer wants something very specific in this painting, and that is red flowers. There is a particular type of red flower that grows down around these areas. I don't know what it's called. But I'm going to show you in a moment. I'm going to put it in and just show you. It's a strange kind of a flower. So I'm just going to first put in some of these little bits of yellow just to suggest little bits of flowers and light grasses and stuff like that popping up here and there, just to brighten it up slightly. And they want some red flowers. Now they're very difficult flowers to paint looking at them, but they just kind of come out at an angle. They sort of just come out like this. That type of effect, okay? They kind of dance around like that. I could probably even use a palette knife for this as well, just to make them a bit more striking, and I will. I'll get a palette knife in a moment. But it's those type of flowers that the customer is looking for. It's a beautiful flower. I don't know what it's called. But I'm just going to kind of dance around with some of these reds, and I pop some stalks in then afterwards. And let's try the palette knife. Come on, let's have a bit of fun with this and see what this does. We could just go like this, look. Create some of these rich red flowers. They're just kind of popping out here and there in the corner. That's a nicer technique, isn't it, with the palette knife? It just gives you that thicker paint. So I'll just continue on with that then for a while. I want to get some splash. We said we were going to do some splash, didn't we? And I really want to get a little bit of splash, just to add a bit of character to it, a little bit of colour, a little bit of brightness. It just looks a little bit dull. That kind of, you know, that kind of feeling. And also, there's one or two little telegraph poles which I want to pop in. I see just one or two there and there. And maybe one or two, just one white one over here. Little bit of splash, my friends. Come on, let's grab a little bit of white paint on the tip of the brush. And I know it's not there, but I'm going to just pop a little bit in. Again, just to give a little bit of movement in the water. I think that looks a little bit more fitting to the scene. What do you think? And it just tends to kind of sit the cliff a bit more down in the water, doesn't it? I just think that's a bit better, a bit nicer. Especially as it's kind of coming in here, because I've been down here and it's a very rough area, and I would like to just pop a little bit of rough water kind of a feeling just here and there. Now that's just enough. It's not too much, it's just enough. So look, anyway, my friends, I'm going to leave it at that. I'll say thank you so much for joining me, and I don't think that's bad at all. I think that's quite nice. I'm going to move the camera back now slightly, just so you can see me and the painting at the same time. There we are. I think that's very nice. What I do like about this painting is those soft blues. I think they give a lovely depth to the painting, I find. Soft blue. So if you're doing shadows, add a soft blue into a shadow or a deep blue. You'll be very surprised how it will transform your shadow. It just transforms the shadow. It gives it a bit of life, a bit of energy. So a little bit of soft blue in the shadow, I think, makes all the difference. I'm quite happy with that. I'm sure the customer will be very happy as well. I may just make the lighthouse slightly bigger, because it seems to be kind of lost at the moment. It's kind of hidden away up in the corner. But that's what the scene is. The photograph is like that. But I think they might want the lighthouse a bit more prominent, a bit more forward. So I might just make it a little bit bigger, do the very same thing again, just slightly bigger. But I'm very happy with that. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Let me know what you think. Do give a thumbs up, and give me a like, and do subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'll be back very, very soon with another tutorial, my friends. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day, and happy painting.